your number 5 on your first meeting mistakes was fluffing the fee discussion. And I'm really curious to talk about that. I wonder, for me, if it is connected to that kind of it feeling a bit incongruous to, really want to get to know you, and then, but only if you pay me, that sort of idea. What do you see are the main challenges that planners are facing around that area?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things. Just bring me back on track if I wander here. But the first thing, fluffing the fee discussion. If you've designed your first meeting process appropriately, it's going to start with lots and lots of questions, and it's you asking the question, the client doing lots of talking in between those questions from you. So a lot of client work and thinking. There will come a point when we've reached the end of that questioning where we've got a good idea of where the client's at, and we might do a bit of a summary and say, look, have I got this right? This is what I'm hearing from you. I'm going to sum up what the key issues are or what I've taken from the conversation. And are we on the right track here? And the client says, look, yeah, exactly. That's sort of, they've confirmed that you're on the right track. I would just, from there somewhere, I would segue into, let me tell you how it works from here. And now it's my turn to explain the process and how much it's going to cost for each of the steps in the process. And so that feels, if we've done the meeting right, that just feels like a natural transition. Probably by the end, the client's going, mate, just tell me how much it's going to cost in their head. So we have to deal with that at the appropriate time. And then there'll be some sort of, closing question to say, look, would you like to go ahead and get the initial plan done or something like that? Be a better question than that. But that's what we're going to be asking. So I think that's the first thing. It should feel natural. If it doesn't, maybe you need to look at the first bit. Okay. And often poor skills up front are the bit that make you then feel really weird about having this fee conversation, but it shouldn't feel like that if we've done the right thing. The other point I often make with the fee discussion, now I know some firms do this and they're okay with it, but I would just tell the clients the fees at the end of my first meeting. This is how it works. Let me tell you how it works from here, and explain the steps and the costs, and then ask the client, did they want to move forward? A lot of places, well, not a lot of places, some firms tell me they don't do that. They say to the client, listen, I'll draft you a scoping letter and I'll send it out and tell you how much it's going to cost. Now, I just don't love that approach. It does work for some firms. So again, if it's working for you, keep doing it. But it just, to me, adds another step that doesn't need to exist. I think the reason people default to the letter is they're too scared to have the conversation with the client. Okay, I believe that for 90% of those people. Maybe there is some going, Brett, that's not why we do it. I hear you, that's cool. But just, I think that's the wrong reason, right? Get the meeting structure right, learn the questioning skills. By that point, the client should be really engaged, and I mean figuratively, eating out of the palm of your hand in terms of trusting you and thinking, wow, this is a beautiful experience. I never expected it to be like this. And then when you tell them how much it cost, brilliant. And if it's a little bit more than they expected, which it always is, even better, because they can sit there. I do this all the time. I'm going, oh, gee, that's a bit more than I was looking to pay, but wow, how good is it? And that's a beautiful decision to have to make, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is, I think there's an assumption in all of that people have designed their first meeting process. I don't think, where I'm coming across, I don't think most people have. I love your list of interesting questions that you talk about, and partly because, whether the questions are quite right for everybody, or you might change them around to suit your own words. I really like the fact that it's built around a process of sort of taking I say it sounds so cheesy, but taking a client on a journey through that first meeting. Which I don't think many people have designed that. I don't think many people think like that about their initial meetings with clients.
And this is just worth saying, because I think you're right. Like I've said in blogs and in talks, the only bit that is art in what we do is that first meeting. And if you haven't designed it, thought about it, tried it, tweaked it, and got it absolutely down pat, like it's the only skill that's really hard to master. But you got to do that work. And I'm I'm gobsmacked when I see what you see, and I see it all the time, where you think, mate, you haven't even thought about this. You've never sat away from the coalface. You can't do this practicing on clients. You have to do it away from the coalface and figure out what's the order that I'm going to do this in. You can still be flexible. You can still be listening. That takes time. At first, when you do it, you can't listen and think at the same time, but that will come. That passes quickly. But yeah, I just can't believe people haven't done some work on that. A little bit of work on it could change your life as a financial planner, could change the trajectory of your career, your earnings, your job satisfaction. I just can't stress that enough.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's why when I've built the Unlocking Excellence program, I've done it as I mean, it's optional, but to do it as a qualification program, so that there's like a 6-month period, 6 to 9 months, when people are pairing up on the course and taking each other through their first meeting process and really practicing that with each other. Because you're right, you can't practice this stuff with clients. You've got to take it away and really think it through. What's going to work for you, making sure that there's a structure, yes, and it's in your style, and you've got your way of asking questions that feels authentic, I suppose, for you. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. So I work a lot when I'm working with clients. I work with assumptions, and we look for untrue limiting assumptions that people might be holding that are holding them back. And again, when I'm working with financial planners, we look at how to weave that into work with clients. But I wonder, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. I wonder what planners might be assuming that stops them being clear and concise about their fees and causes them to fluff that fee discussion. Is that something that you...
Yeah, I think the absolute root cause of it is not quite being 100% convinced yourself that you're really good value for what you do. Now, I've heard so much unhelpful advice on this, like people, bullshit types, tell you need to just be confident or this or that. What a load of nonsense, right? If I was confident, I wouldn't have any problem explaining the damn fee, right? So I always use the example. If someone rings me up tomorrow and says, Brett, let's come and run the marathon next week, I have to say, no, I haven't run for 5 years. I've done no training. And they go, Brett, just be confident. No, dude, my knees will be broken by kilometer 10, right? It's just not going to work. If I'm going to do that, I've got to do the miles, I've got to do the training, I've got to do the work. And if I do that for probably a year or a year and a half, maybe 2 years in my case, maybe I can be on the line, still nervous, but despite the nerves, an inner confidence, thinking I've done the work, right? I don't know if I'm going to hit my time, but I know I'm going to go okay, right? I've done the work, I'm feeling good. And I think it's the same with this. You've got to do the work away from the meeting room with clients, okay, to be able to go in and have some confidence that you can take the client on that journey skillfully, get them engaged. And I think doing the work is the easy bit. But again, I mean, I'll give you another example. There's another tool we teach called the value-added checklist, where at review time, we're asking advisors to go through and think, where did I add value to the client in cash? Now, I get a lot of pushback on this, all right? I remember doing some work with Emery Little. There was a little bit of pushback on this, because good advisors who are like into life planning, financial planning, and skillful are going, mate, that is not the value we add, right? And I get it. It's not. The value we add is the peace of mind and letting people really, really live their lives free of worry and stuff like that. But doing the value-added checklist is a great exercise for advisors to do, to see how much value in cash they add, like tax wins, pension wins, investment cost savings, you name it. It just is off the scale. And once you've done that with a bunch of your client files, you'll recognize that if I charge a premium price, I'm still amazing value, right? If I'm a proper financial planner. And I think it's these sort of things you've got to work through and do. And it still takes years. You can still see it 20 times and go, I still don't quite believe it, but it's moving you along that curve. And I think when you can't explain the fee thing with a level of confidence. It doesn't mean you still won't be nervous. I still get nervous pitching my fees to people after all this time.
Yep.
But you can still have that inner confidence thinking, no, I know this is good value. And that's what I think the work away from the coalface gives you.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think I've definitely witnessed quite a lot of resistance to that value added checklist. And I guess what I see is that all of the intangible value that financial planners absolutely add, and that, the peace of mind of working with financial planning firms and all of that, it sits on top actually. And so if you can really think about the pounds and pence savings, or that you've saved the client, and then think about all the intangibles on top, then maybe that is a big confidence builder. But I do wonder. So I'm now this year, the last few years, sort of doing my own thing. And this year particularly, as I've really stepped it up, I'm having to do this for the first time. I'm having to kind of have these sorts of fee discussions. And one of the things that really grounds me in that is a lot of this work. So my coaching rates, for example, I've had coaching myself, and I know the value of it. I know the value for myself. This might be wrong, but I don't know of many financial planners that are paying a financial planner themselves.
I know none. So, right. And I always ask that question. And again, just for a laugh, say shame on you all, right, for doing that. But I've encouraged people to go and do that for a bunch of reasons. One, doctors are not allowed to give advice to their own family. There's a reason for that. And they're not allowed to medicate themselves. There's a reason for that. And financial planners should be exactly the same. There's no way you should be doing your own financial planning, with all the love in the world. But the other benefit, besides just that it's probably good practice, go and spend some of your own hard-earned, and you will feel what it feels like to be a client. I got to be honest, when I'm cutting the check for a couple of grand to my advisor for the advice, it hurts a little bit. I'm going, please God, let this be valuable, right? Because that's how vulnerable you are when you're in that situation. You need to experience that as an advisor, because you've never experienced that, maybe in other areas, but not in financial planning. But also, let's say it costs you a couple of grand to get advice. Whether you go ahead with that advice or you end up doing it yourself is fine. I'm not saying you have to necessarily go all the way with that, but that $2,000 or whatever it costs you to get the advice will be the best market research you've ever done. Now, you don't have to go back and tell the advisor all the things you hated about their process, but you can experience that and go, oh yeah, that's no good. We do that. I'm going to, it's just the cheapest market research you could do, right? How else are you going to find out that information? I reckon a few grand is a bargain for that, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely.